everyone, welcome to the Big Picture Film Club. Today's guests are a writer and director and lead film star from the upcoming sci-fi thriller Solitary. Solitary is set in a dystopian future where a prisoner named Isaac wakes up on board a space pod to find he's been condemned to life on Earth's first colony. The film stars Lottie Tolhurst, and Johnny Sachon, who's with us now, and also who serves as one of the film's producers. And also we've got writer and director Luke Armstrong with us. So Luke, Johnny, firstly, welcome to the Big Picture Film Club, and how are you guys doing?
Thank you. I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Really relaxed. I'm liking that the sun's out, and yeah, it's an interesting time in our industry. But it's really good to see that indie films are still coming out, and I'm really excited to kind of see what you guys have kind of put together.
Yeah, it's exciting times. I think it's been a really difficult time for a lot of people. And it's been interesting trying to finish the film in this period of time. But I think credit to all the crew, especially post production. We've managed to pull it off, sort of doing it all remotely in post. So yeah, it's been a really interesting time. But yeah, exciting to see what the future holds for the film. Definitely.
My understanding, and please clarify how this. So this film actually began as a short film, like shot Luke entirely in your living room.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So how did that process come about? How did that conversation even get going in the first place?
Yeah, that's it. Go on, Johnny.
I'll start. Basically, we were sort of racking our brains as to what we can do to demonstrate what's possible on little to no budget. And Luke said to me, I've got this amazing idea. And we sort of had a bit of a back and forth on it. And he said, right, come round to the flat. I've got this script. We've got this idea. I've got a green screen. Let's do it. So I turn up to his flat. And it's literally a pop-up green screen and I don't know, like what would you call it? Sort of a sofa thing that you'd put outside on a balcony.
It's an outdoor sofa. Yeah,
an outdoor sofa.
Cool.
Yeah.
And like we had no professional lights or anything. I bought my camera, it's a good camera, but it's not a Red, it's not an Arri.
Yeah.
It was Sony FS5. And I think we had one hue light strip and one other thing. I've forgotten what it was. And that was about it. And I'm sort of sitting there in front of this green screen going, what is this? What's going on? And then, Luke creates this incredible little short film, basically, that, I'll pass it over to Luke on that point. Yeah.
You took it incredibly well. I didn't hear about the how ridiculous that must have seemed till later. I didn't really think about that, but yeah, in hindsight, that must have been ludicrous. Funnily enough, actually, a little bit of a segue, but when we were shooting the feature, we did a pickup day in my flat in pretty much the same way. And that was with both Johnny and Lottie. And we just needed like one shot, and we did it in the same way. And Lottie arrived and she was like, oh, okay. That's how we're doing it. And then, when she saw the finished result, she was quite impressed that we could sort of slot the two things in together. But it's definitely helped us out because there's no way we could have afforded to go back to the set. And, well, the set's gone. It's been, I don't know, it's in a skip somewhere, I think, unfortunately. Yeah.
So how important was kind of getting that, that short film sort of as a sort of proof of concept out to sort of say, hey, look, we've got an idea here, we can do this. How important was that, the short film, to eventually this getting the feature film released?
Well,
go on
after you, mate. Sorry.
All right, go on. I was going to say that that is ultimately what got it funded, but I have to say when we made it, it wasn't. I can't pretend that we actually had a feature film version of it in mind. We kind of just sort of wanted to do a test to show what was possible with no money at all. And so we went and made that. And then we had a meeting with a sales agent about a different film, which was like a drama, very contained. And they said, this is great, but we actually like to do something a bit different with visual effects. So we showed them the short film kind of just as a stab in the dark, and they were like, "Wow, can you make that?" Well, yeah, great, okay. And so that's what ended up happening. It was a little bit ridiculous, and we've made short films a few times in the past as like pitch films, and it's never really come to anything.
Yeah.
So it was great that we had that in our back pocket and we were able to use it, and that kind of sold them the idea. So the script was actually written after they'd seen this 90-second trailer version of the short film, which was only like 4 minutes long.
Oh wow.
And that was it, yeah. And then I think that meeting happened like maybe March last year, where we actually showed them that trailer, and then the film was finished. The feature film was finished by like May, late May. So yeah, quite ludicrously fast, really, in the scheme of things.
Yeah, and Luke, a lot of your background is like heavily involved in like VFX, and so
Yeah.
how did you kind of, how did it feel for you to kind of make that transition from being, kind of creating these worlds in VFX and working on design, and then sort of taking the lead effectively, like holding something by the reins in terms of being both the project's writer and director and saying, this is my full creative vision. Like, how was that transition for you?
Well, I mean, it's a funny one. So I've kind of symbiotically been doing visual effects and filmmaking for years, and I actually started out making films on my own, and the visual effects thing started because I ended up living abroad and I had no actors, so I ended up sort of making short films where I cloned myself and stuff. So it was sort of a necessary a necessary technique to actually be able to practice putting stuff together. But yeah, I mean, I made a lot of shorts, and so just gradually getting better as a visual effects artist and working on these big films has helped me, because I've been able to use those techniques and connections on my own films. And sometimes it's also about knowing what not to try to do with visual effects and what things to do practically. But yeah, I mean, it actually felt pretty seamless, to be honest. I mean, me and Johnny had made 2 really big short films together, like 4 or 5 days shoots, and one of them was crowdfunded with like a $5,000 budget, which seemed like a lot of money to us at the time. And yeah, so that seemed like that was really great prep for stepping into a feature and doing a bigger project like this.
And in that, you mentioned kind of knowing what not to do in terms of post, and what you can do or should do or consider in like practical effects. I guess in this film, particularly as it's like, it's dystopian sci-fi into the future, where you can theoretically kind of go in many directions. How do you decide, all right, what should be done in post, and what we'll try and fashion and do practically on the day?
I think it's all to do with what can you do practically. I mean, if we could do something practically, we would. I.e., in the short film, it was full CG environments, and the whole capsule set is actually just green screen. And then for the feature film, we said, well, that's just way too much work. Let's actually do something where the audience is going to appreciate the actual visual effect on screen. So that might be seeing a spaceship, or I don't know, seeing the rocket launched into space. So we built the set and got much better results, because there are just random things that happen with lighting and stuff that, it's imperfect, and it makes it more real and less work. So it's generally just about, we only end up doing the things that we can't do practically as visual effects. That's sort of the secret, rather than creating more work for ourselves.
And the film, details sort of like Earth's first colony in some way. That's a big theme in the film, and I wanted to kind of go on this point, like you had people like Elon Musk sort of talking about us as humans needing to be a multi-planet sort of species. Why is that concept of us needing to be like a multi-planet species, or us kind of visiting or colonizing a new world, sort of both endearing and frightful at the same time? Like, how does that all create a great story?
I mean, from my perspective, I think it's inevitable at some point. I mean, the way I think at some point. I spoke to someone about it, and I was like, it's basically like the start of Australia in space, you know. And if you look through history, colonizing different like places, and it gets repeated. So I think it's inevitable at some point that that's going to happen. So I think it's very interesting to explore. But obviously, the unknown is, I think, as a species, we're excited by it, but also it's something that we can't control. I think that's what kind of makes it scary, because we are stepping into the unknown, and yeah, we don't know what's going to happen. That was my experience of it anyway. But you know, what about yours, Luke?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly it. I think it's inevitable if Elon manages to get his way, which I'm sure he will, because he seems very successful at whatever he does. Everybody's like, that sounds crazy, and then he does it. So, yeah, I think that's definitely the direction we're heading in. And I mean, one of the other themes that's explored in the film is that we're not brilliant at treating the planet very well. We're sort of set in this dystopian future where all the resources have run out, and we didn't manage to stop global warming, which is a little bit cynical. But I mean, if you look at, you know, recent history, we've not been fantastic at sort of managing that side of things. So yeah, I think it's probably inevitable. And also, I mean, we're explorers as a species, so I'm sure we will end up wanting to leave Earth, even if it's not for our own survival, you know.
And in Johnny, I think this is something you could, well, both of you actually, in as a lot of the stuff is kind of done on green screen, I guess how, Luke, do you sort of direct Johnny to imagine these worlds that aren't quite made up yet or fleshed out? Yeah, and Johnny, how do you, and you know, with your interactions with Lottie, sort of imagine your interactions with each other in a world that isn't sort of kind of created yet? Does that make sense?
Do you want to go first, Johnny?
Okay. Yeah. So my first experience of green screen was that short film, and yeah, it was a very different experience as an actor. Normally, you've got stuff there to interact with, and I'd sort of watched a lot of the behind the scenes on big movie sets like the Marvel franchise, and seeing them on these big green screen stages. And I had no idea what to expect, but Luke he'd already done I think there was a mock-up of the CG spaceship. So he was very good in explaining, this is here, this is there. And we sort of chose points to look at. So when I was directing a line, or something was happening in a certain place, in a situation in his living room, he was like, right, the lampshade is this, or that kind of thing. And interacting with Lottie, I think a lot of the time, because we then had a set, it was a lot easier, because you felt, I don't know, it brought a real element to it. When you're responding to things like, I don't know, something blowing up outside the spaceship, or something hits the spaceship, or those sorts of things, when you look out a window and it's basically just a green screen. I think it's about that, using your imagination, right? I think that's it. As an actor, you're picking points. I mean, we were very clear on where things were happening, so we're both looking in the right direction at the same time, beats and that sort of thing. So yeah, it felt nice on the feature, because you had some practical, and then some things that you were having to sort of imagine that were there. So it made it a lot easier, especially when you're an actor with another actor in the space. You've got time to just focus on them, and focus on what's sort of happening between the two of you, rather than worry too much about the lampshades turning into something else. I don't know.
I mean, I think that's the main thing, isn't it? Is acting is all about reacting, and a lot of directing is about giving your actors some context to what the lines mean usually, and working with them to find the truth in the moment. And when it was just me and Johnny in my living room, I was reading lines to him, or I was off camera sort of saying, right, here's your eye line, here's what's around you, and trying to give him a picture. And we also had a mock-up of the CG on my laptop, so I showed him what the space would look like. So even though it was just a green screen in my living room, he could at least imagine what it was that he was looking at, and have quite a good idea of what it should look like and things. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a challenge. There's a scene in the film where the actors are in a courtroom, and they're talking to each other, and it was actually they were both shot completely separately on the green screen, not even in the same room as each other, and it's quite amusing because you wouldn't know it when you see it all cut together. But I think I am impressed. I mean, it's a challenge, I would imagine, as an actor to be taken completely out of context and then asked to perform in a realistic way. And I think that's one reason why we were so keen to have a proper set for this film and make sure that we weren't doing it all on green screen, because I think that's just a lot of heavy lifting that you shouldn't have to be doing if you've got other, you want to be putting your focus on the performance in the moment and not thinking about half your energy being on what does this room look like that I'm in. So yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned courtrooms, because that kind of follows into my next question. So it's not simply a story of kind of Earth's first colony. It's effectively of prisoners going to Earth's first colony. So so now we've kind of sort of talked about the conditions in space, have you? How is it, like, I guess, socially on Earth? Like, what sort of conditions lead to this idea that, we're just gonna fling some people in space? And how does that decision get made?
Well, if you look at history, we have a track record of putting people on ships and sending them off to far-flung lands, so it's not so unbelievable, unfortunately, that we might think about doing that again. And we know that Mars is, I can't remember how many years, is it 4 years or 8 years to Mars, they were saying. And basically, I think, was it NASA that put out an advert for volunteers willing to do a one-way trip a few years ago, and they got a load of people come, like hundreds of people come back, which is quite interesting. And I think if you were going to start a colony on, we haven't actually said where in the movie, I don't think this colony is, but if you were going even just as far as Mars and you needed a lot of people, I think looking at prisoners would be quite an easy pool to pull from, people who don't have much choice or say in that. So, and I think also, part of the setup in the film is that, the prisons are overcrowded. They're looking for something to do with people. We've long since outlawed the death penalty. So, this is sort of quite an extreme punishment, isn't it? That's not imprisonment. So convenience, perhaps.
And I guess the privatization of the prison system, which obviously the UK is in a different situation, but looking into that, companies actually, at least from what we've been looking at, the privatization of prisons, where companies are benefiting financially from the work that prisoners are doing inside those prisons. And so, yeah, again, not too much of a leap to think that a company might go, right, cool, this feels like a good pool that we could pull from and make a profit on it. So yeah.
I guess how does your character Johnny sort of knowing that he's aware of the dynamics of this system then, and he's being sort of used in this way, how's his response, or I guess motivations, not to go to this planet? Like, how does that manifest itself in the film?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah.
I think from Isaac is he was originally in the army, so he's a soldier. He's fought for his country. I think he's been through the system, is suffering from some elements of PTSD, doesn't quite know how to fit into the society that he comes back to, and definitely falls on not such great times financially, has a situation with his partner where she's gambling and all sorts of things. So I think he gets himself into some very unfortunate situations, and then obviously is I'm trying to explain it without giving too much away, but ends up in a situation where he ends up getting sentenced and not really given a choice what he does. And I think he's very much a he's already a bit of a broken man when we meet him, and then he's quite he likes his feet on the floor. He's quite he's quite a working man, likes to keep things simple, and suddenly waking up on board a spaceship was never in his plan. And I think one of the worst things that could possibly happen to him, especially being a little bit claustrophobic. So I think he, in terms of when he first wakes up, he's very much like, this can't be real. And then there's a real battle emotionally with him about what these people have done and whether it's right or wrong, and whether he's right or wrong, and if he can get back, is there anything to come back to? I think is a big question as well for him. So there's a lot of discussion about right and wrong in the film, and there's a lot of conflict, I think, for him internally.
Speaking, I guess, more practically about kind of the film creation, how has how has coronavirus sort of the pandemic sort of affected your shooting schedule, and did it affect your shooting schedule? It's not quite clear like when this was filmed, so and how did it affect kind of completing the film?
I was just going to say, I mean, so we were fortunate in that we actually shot during, I think it was the first 2 weeks of December, and a little bit back in November. So by the time the virus arrived, we'd already wrapped, thankfully, and we were into post. But it did affect us in post. Certain things like going and sitting in Soho with the sound designer, on a sound stage, getting to watch the film and give notes and things. And also we had some voiceover stuff to do with actors, which had to be done remotely, which was a bit of a challenge. That sort of thing, we lost out a little bit, but we equally got a little bit more time, just because I think things were a little bit up in the air for the distributor, so they sort of said, well, just use the time and make it as good as you can make it. So that was great. I think we had an extra 6 weeks. And of course, I was just at home the whole time, so it was great. I had my undivided attention. Yeah.
Okay, so when the film comes out, end of August, got an exact date? 31st.
31st of August.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
On all digital platforms and on disc in all retailers, which is great.
Awesome. And if people want to catch up on like social or digital, like where can they find the film or more info about it?
Well, we're on all social media, so Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solitary Movie, or the Inspired Pictures website, which is inspired-pictures.co.uk.
Awesome. Luke Armstrong, Johnny Sachon, thank you very much for coming on to the Big Picture Film Club. And I look forward to watching Solitary.
Thanks very much.